Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the presidents and chancellors, athletic directors, and football coaches, and especially the 1,000 football student athletes, I'd like to welcome everyone to New Orleans, to the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, home of the Sun Belt Conference, to today's 2014 Sun Belt Conference Football Media Day. Starting last week with the SEC and ending next week with the Big Ten, all 10 of the FBS conference commissioners will conduct their respective football media days, and each of the conference commissioners will take the podium, as I am now, to give their State of the Conference address. As I begin my third year as the Sun Belt Commissioner and my 25th year as an FBS Commissioner, and after a period of unprecedented changes in conference membership, I am pleased to say that we've arrived at a period of relative stability. This will be the first time since 2011 that the 11 universities that are in the room today, none will be playing their last year in the Sun Belt, and none will be returning to the conference from where they would be joining the Sun Belt. We have arrived as an 11-team league. We are very pleased to add Appalachian State, Georgia Southern, New Mexico State, and the University of Idaho. We strongly believe we have put together a football conference that will achieve greatness in the coming years. The 10 FBS conferences only behind, the 2013 season was the best ever in the history of the Sun Belt. 21 non-conference wins, 7 bowl-eligible teams, 2 more bowl wins to give the Sun Belt the second highest winning percentage of any of the 10 SBS conferences, only behind the SEC, and the first time since 1996 when the Group of 5 conferences put together a ranking system, the Sun Belt finished first ahead of Conference USA, the Mountain West, and the MAC. And while we enjoy a period of membership stability, we also enter into a new era of college football with the advent of the College Football Playoff. And the SBC and its 11 football-playing schools are poised to be a major player in the new postseason. Under the leadership of the presidents and chancellors and the athletic directors, our 11 universities have made major investments in building new facilities and expanding current facilities to give their football coaches the opportunity to recruit the quality of players that will allow them to compete not only against our peer conferences, but to compete for one of the berths in the new College Football Playoff. Athletic directors have also invested heavily in their coaches and have provided them with the resources to have successful teams and programs. SBC football programs have also changed and are changing their non-conference scheduling strategy to give their teams better chances to win games and improve ratings and rankings to reach the goal of playing in one of the New Year's Day games and becoming that next Boise State or TCU. We have added 2 additional bowl opportunities with the creation of the Raycon Media Camellia Bowl, launching this December in Montgomery, and the Cure Bowl launching in Orlando following the 2015 season. The SBC is also part of a bowl consortium with our peer conferences that will include the Bahamas Bowl and the Miami Beach Bowl. These new bowl opportunities, along with our current long-standing bowls, R&L Carrier here in New Orleans and the GoDaddy in Mobile, will also help our coaches recruit the kind of players needed to achieve the success we expect. You will also notice a change in the SBC football officiating program this season, as we have teamed with the SEC for a joint program administered by SEC and now SBC supervisor official Steve Shaw. This program will give SBC football officials the training, teaching, and evaluation to make them better officials that will result in an overall better officiated game. And this will allow our coaches and players to maximize their on-field performance that will result in better football in the Sun Belt. And finally, on the TV front, last week we announced an expanded agreement with ESPN that will result in every home Sun Belt football game this season being televised on either ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, ESPN News, or ESPN3. This new agreement gives the Sun Belt a tremendous boost on our television coverage, especially on the digital side with ESPN3, that becomes the wave of the future on how fans will watch college sports. We are very excited about this new venture with ESPN, but it didn't come without some pain and angst, as the partnership between the two regional sport networks, Cox Sports TV and College Sports South, that for the past 5 years has distributed games via the Sun Belt Network, will no longer exist. This comes as a result of CSS ceasing operations back in early June. Special thanks to CST and CSS for their support in the past, but it's now time to move forward, move on with this new and very exciting opportunity with ESPN for the future. This TV piece, along with the university commitment to build and enhance facilities, a change in non-conference scheduling strategies, new bowl games, and better officiating, all adds up to a recipe of success for the Sun Belt in this new era of college football. Only one of 10 FBS conferences, and the youngest, the SPC is prepared for today and poised for the future, and yes, together we will rise and achieve greatness. And while the sport of football is enjoying unparalleled and success and popularity, college sports in general is facing some daunting tasks. Player safety and the overall well-being and treatment of student athletes. Pending lawsuits against the FBS conferences on behalf of student athletes. Demanding pay for play. Proposed unionization by student athletes. All threaten the current model for intercollegiate sports. As you recall, last fall, the Big Five conferences proposed a new model for college sports that then resulted in nearly a 9-month study of a proposed redesign of the NCAA governance structure. Yes, the Big Five called for the power and the authority and the autonomy to rewrite the rules that would allow for greater financial aid and benefits to student athletes and their families, more flexible transfer rules for student athletes, and in general, a more deregulated governance system. Last Friday, the NCAA forwarded a proposed model for this new governance system to the NCAA Board of Directors that would, in effect, give the Big Five what they have said they need and want to protect the current collegiate model for the future and to help guard against the current and future legal attacks on this model. While there is much anxiety and many unknowns of exactly what this will mean for the Sun Belt and the 27 other Division I conferences, the Sun Belt Conference is prepared to support these changes. Will there be greater additional costs? More than likely. And yes, there will be challenges, but Sun Belt universities have invested too much not to be part of major college football in the future. Finally, I mentioned the issue of player safety. Earlier this month, the NCAA issued guidelines for reducing the amount of contact by football teams during practice. The Sun Belt Conference endorses these guidelines, and many of our coaches already have adopted or will adopt these guidelines to reduce player injuries. A copy of these guidelines are at the media table, and I encourage you to take one for you, read it, and to see what college football is attempting to do to protect especially college football players. Now, before I open it up for questions, let me make a few special introductions. I mentioned the CFP. Please welcome CFO Reed Sigmund. I mentioned Steve Shaw, SEC and SBC Supervisor of Officials. An interview area has been set up for Reed and Steve in the back, and they will be available for the next 30 minutes or so for you. In addition, representatives from our 4 guaranteed bowl games are in attendance, and a table has been set in the back for them as well, representing the R&L Carrier New Orleans Bowl, Billy Ferrante and Jay Cicero, Jerry Silverstein, the GoDaddy Bowl, David Williams, the Raycom Media Camellia Bowl, and Alan Gooch, the Cure Bowl. Again, a table will be set and those individuals will be ready and available for you once I conclude my remarks and the Q&A has been conducted. Also in attendance, and this is a first for the Sun Belt, are 4 representatives of the college football New Year's Day games, and they too have a table reserved on the side. As you know, the highest ranked champion of our peer conferences, the Group of 5, receives an automatic berth into one of those New Year Days games. From the Cotton Bowl, representing the Cotton Bowl is CEO Rick Baker. From the Fiesta Bowl, Tracy Guerra. And from the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in Atlanta is Jessica Lumpson. It's more than likely that one of those 3 games will host the highest ranked champion just based on the contractual arrangements that are with the other games. This first year, obviously, the Cotton Bowl, as it is hosting the national championship game, will not be in that pool of the contract bowls, of the host bowls. Also from the All-State Sugar Bowl that we are proud to be able to share, not necessarily office space, but share the same address here in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, is Austin Martin, and they too will be available for you for the next 30 minutes or so. And then finally, the Sun Belt Athletic Directors are in attendance, and it can be found in the back of the room, and they too will be available. All of these representatives will be at the party reception tonight, should you wish to have an opportunity to visit with them. I will now entertain questions from the audience for 10, 15 minutes.
Raise your hand. We have a wireless mic coming around.
Karl, you mentioned the uncertainty over the proposed changes. What do you fear most about the potential of those changes for a conference like the Sun Belt, and what do you hope for most?
Well, what we want to make sure doesn't happen is that there is any unintended consequences, that the competitiveness is not disrupted. There's already a competitive gap between the Big 5 and the Group of 5. Will this increase? We've shown that the competitive gap is not as great as the economic gap, and that's shown by success on the field on any given Saturday, that teams from the Group of 5 have proven that they can compete on a given day against the Big 5. We want to make sure that competitive gap isn't widened. Whether that would that result, if there were additional scholarships, something like that could create a more competitive distance. We've been indicated, we've been told that that's not in their plans, but that would be a fear. Some of the transfer rules that have been suggested want to make sure that those are only introduced at the Big 5 level, so to speak, that they can't come down and take a student athlete from the Sun Belt or one of the Group of 5. So those are the two that probably have the most fear. We know that there's going to be a cost, and athletic directors and presidents and chancellors, whether it's individually or whether it's within a conference structure, will establish certain guidelines, certain policies that to address the financial aid piece. I think we can be certain that cost of attendance will be the top level, that every university will establish what their cost of attendance is based on some federal guidelines, and that's what will be the potential. So that those are probably it's what's causing some athletic directors some sleepless nights, I'm sure.
Karl, I'm sure you heard June Jones said the other day that he thinks the Group of 5 should play football in the spring, just because that gap is just going to get wider and wider. Is that at all realistic, or do you think, that the Group of 5 and the Power 5 can kind of coexist in this new reality, I guess?
I'll answer it the latter. Yes, we can coexist, and will coexist, and I think that suggestion may have been made in some out of context. What we wanted to make sure was that the Big Tent continued, that the 10 FBS conferences would continue to operate under the same tent. the Big Five commissioners made that promise early on. Yes, there may have been some saber rattling along the way, but that was their goal from the beginning, was to ensure that the current system under the NCAA Division I FBS model would continue. There is a 12-year agreement with the College Football Playoff that binds us contractually, so we have that as a safeguard. But I think that in general, the outcome, even though there is some still unanswered questions, we're glad that we were able to stay under that tent.
With that, do you feel like there's less membership, less of a feeling of belonging when you get together as the 10 conferences than you did before in the BCS era, when you seem to make consensus decisions? Are the group of five in less of a voice now than they did before?
Well, again, there's been some compromise over the course of the last several months, and they have given up some issues, and there's been some I think some middle of the road decisions that have been made. I think that there's still a strong desire. I think they recognize that they need us. They need Sun Belt and the other conferences from a scheduling standpoint. So again, I think their intent was to make it work, and our intent certainly was to make it work. There was 22 other conferences that that have been involved in this process over the last 6 or 7 or 8 months, and they were willing to give up on some of their issues as well. So I think that the outcome has been a cooperative and one based on some collegiality, and that it's time now to see what the final document looks like and how it's going to be implemented, and what really will be the outcome.